And now you are watching PMTN News.
On today's news, we will be talking about 4 real war stories from Vietnam.
Let's hear a first story about a missing person named Marianne.
A little background of Marianne. Marianne was reported missing a few months ago. Marianne was reported to be Mark Fosse's girlfriend. Mark Fosse is a stationed medic for the war in a small detachment in the mountains west of Cha Lo near the village of Tra Chabrong. Mark has reportedly flown out Marianne to their settlement. She was described as a very sweet and innocent girl, being very naive and curious about everything that was going on. She reportedly was very curious in the people that were being flown out by plane, helping Mark, her boyfriend, patch those people up and things like that. I know it might sound crazy that he flew his girlfriend out without literally anyone knowing, but somehow he did it. Marianne even went as far as going into the town and talking to the Vietnamese people and learning about their culture and their language. She started learning Vietnamese, according to reporters. Marianne even went as far as hanging out with the Greenies, which, if you don't know what the Greenies are, which you probably don't, they are a special task force near the base of the recruiters for the medic camp. She started participating in the war. She started leaving the medics and going out with the Greenies to go fight in the war. Shortly after she did that, it was reported that her and Mark Fosse broke up. Now, instead of going back home, she reportedly stayed with the Greenies after breaking up with Mark Fosse. She was even reported to start having a feeling of hunger for the war, which is unprecedented. There is no women in war. Witnesses even say that she was seen walking around chanting in, I'm guessing, Vietnamese. She was even reportedly dressing differently, wearing things like tongues around her neck. I can't believe that in such a short amount of time, the war had really changed her. She came in a sweet, lovable girl and came out a sharp-toothed warrior, and she is still missing to this day.
A soldier named Kurt Lemon was at the Calm Rocket Pocket Camp along the South China Sea in February. This was because he was going to get his teeth checked on and possibly repaired by the army dentist. This may seem unbelievable, but Kurt Lemon was nervous of the dentist, even though most of the other soldiers describe him as playing the tough soldier role. For example, the soldier once painted his body and put on a ghost mask to go out on Halloween night to trick or treat, according to some other soldiers. When asked, he said that back in high school he had some bad experiences with dentists. Later, the soldier is then seen going into the tent. Another soldier told us that he fainted and he sat under a tree looking dazed for a long while. Later that night, Kurt was seen by other soldiers again going back into the dentist's tent to redo the check of his teeth. The following morning, the soldier had a tooth pulled, and reportedly the tooth was healthy, meaning there was no need to pull it. And now on to you, Nina, with the story on Henry Dobbin.
This afternoon in the Batungun Peninsula, we have reports that a group of soldiers passing by found an abandoned church. Well, almost abandoned. You see, there was monks living there, and these monks, they didn't speak really any English. They kind of just made hand gestures, like thumbs up or that way. But they were really friendly. They didn't bother the soldiers at all. The monks were so friendly that they gave the lieutenant a chair to sit in. They also gave all the soldiers watermelon and did not leave until they ate it to the rime. The monks even let the soldiers stay there for 2 days. Monks even had their own garden. They had a little shack that they were living in. One of the monks, the younger one specifically, really took a special liking to one of the soldiers named Henry Dobbins. He even worshipped him. Soldier Jesus, they would even say. We have reports from on the sea that Henry Dobbins said that after the war, he maybe wants to join and be with the monks.
Guys, hello there. I'm Trent Nagel, and for our final story today, we're focusing on the late Vietnam veteran Norman Boker, a former soldier who struggled to adjust to life after returning home from the war. Friends say Boker often felt disconnected from the people around him and found it difficult to explain what happened overseas. The memory that seemed to affect him the most was the death of a fellow soldier named Kirawa during combat. Even after returning home, Boker reportedly carried intense guilt over the incident, believing that he could have done more to save his friend. His story has since become a part of a larger conversation about emotional and psychological effects that war can leave behind. To better understand the emotional truth behind stories like Boker's, we're joined here today by writer and Vietnam veteran Tim O'Brien. Mr. O'Brien, many people hearing Boker's story might wonder why he could not just move on after coming home from the war. What do you think he was struggling with the most?
I think Tim Boker was trapped by guilt. Even after leaving Vietnam, part of him was still there mentally. He kept replaying Kiowa's death over and over in his mind and wondering if he could have really saved him. War can stay with people long after the fighting ends.
Some people might question the story's certain details that changed over time. They might ask how something can still be true if every fact is not exactly the same.
Facts matter, but emotional truth matters too. Sometimes a story can be completely accurate, but still not show what something actually felt like. Other times details might change, but the fear and guilt, confusion, and loneliness behind the story are still real.
So in your opinion, a true war story is more about emotional than perfect factual accuracy?
Many ways, yes. War itself is confusing and contradictory. People often expect war stories to have a clear lesson or a heroic ending, but real experiences usually are not that simple. Sometimes the stories are disturbing, uncomfortable, because war is disturbing and uncomfortable.
Boker seemed to be unable to talk to the people around him about what happened overseas. Why do you think so many veterans struggle with that?
A lot of veterans come home feeling isolated. They feel like nobody can really understand what they experienced. Boker drove around his hometown for hours because he wanted a connection, but at the same time, he felt completely alone.
Many people are also surprised that stories like this do not really have a hopeful ending or a clear moral message.
That is because war does not always leave people with closure. Sometimes all that remains is grief, regret, or confusion. I think it's important for stories to show that reality instead of pretending war is always heroic or meaningful.
Before we end, what do you hope people understand from stories like Boker's?
I hope people understand that war affects soldiers long after they return from home. The emotional weight that can stay with them for years. If a story can make people truly feel that pain, guilt, or loneliness, then it has captured that important kind of truth.
Well, thank you, Tim. See, stories like Norman Boker's continue to show the difficult questions around war, memory, and truth. While some details may change depending on who's telling them, many believe the emotions behind the stories remain real. Boker's struggle also shows that war can continue to affect soldiers long after they leave the battlefield, especially when feelings of guilt, trauma, and isolation go unspoken. For many people, stories like these matter not because they are perfect facts, but they help explain the emotional reality veterans often carry along with them after the war. And that continues our story for today. Back to you, Nina and Phoebe.
This concludes our broadcast for the night.